Hello, it is Dr. Jen Martin with Aging Advantage, and today we are here with Joey Pindell, and he's going to do the second part of this series that we are having for all of you caregivers to be able to learn more about mobility services and mobility solutions for your family and your loved ones. The company he works for is Mobility. Well, he's a mobility specialist, sorry, for Southern Bus and Mobility is the company that he works with. And so, anyway, he's going to be going over in this second part a little bit more specifics and really dive into different topics and things that we don't really think about when it comes to mobility vehicles. Like, you can have the ramp out the back, you can have a ramp on the side. Does it fit in your garage? Different things like that. And then also kind of I'm going to have him dive in a little more to the differences for you all in terms of renting again versus buying, and just kind of what different, like how you would finance one of these kind of vehicles, and do you test drive one of them ahead of time, and all the things like that that are just good to know, and questions that we really have that we really would like answers to. But sometimes, we're afraid to ask, or we just don't know. So anyway, yes, I hope you all enjoy this. Like I said, this will be the second session with him. And then also I want you all to stay tuned. We're going to do a third and fourth session with him as well, where I'm going to go live in person and show you the different kinds of mobility vehicles that there are from like a transportation standpoint, and just some of these different features and functions that we're talking about in these actual videos. But we just wanted to intro you guys to them first in this kind of format, just so you can kind of start thinking and wrap your head around the different options that there are. So anyways, stay tuned. And like I said, we'll be providing more to you guys later. But yeah, enjoy, and definitely take some notes. So thanks, guys. When somebody goes in the hospital, like to your point, how you mentioned a couple conditions earlier. So, like if somebody has like a stroke, or if somebody, is now like a, newer kind of amputee or something like that. But some like an event kind of that could happen and somebody would go in the hospital. What usually are those kind of events, I guess, or, what kind of conditions do you guys see people having that would make them kind of more qualified for needing to access these kind of services? Or like, or I don't know, or if like maybe somebody would like have like more advanced like MS stuff, or I don't, or neuropathy, or I don't know, something like whatever, what I don't know, whatever that would be. But that, and then also if somebody does have an event like that and they're in the hospital, and then let's say they get discharged, but again, now the family is going to need help transporting this person. Um, would the case manager, or is it case manager, care manager at the hospital, kind of be able to work with that family, and the patient to say, okay, this kind of might be a good option for you guys? Or usually how do people get referred to you also?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And really when it comes down to it is yes, we do have some care workers and some social workers that do mention us. But once again, it goes back to knowing that equipment is out here and really spreading the word that we're out here and that people can get their freedom later down the road. Because usually 9 times out of 10 is whenever, and we never, and we pray that people don't get in the situation, but life happens and it does. And so the one thing that happens is no one really goes, you know what, I'm going to be in a chair in 5 years, or I'm going to have limited mobility. I need to already start mapping out that I need to get a lift or a wheelchair accessible vehicle, or something that's going to have some type of mobility needs. It doesn't really happen. Usually what happens is in the timeline is something really something really happens in their life that's really out of nowhere, like a shock value, or something like a trauma event happens. And really when those events happen, a lot of times people are really going, oh my goodness. And it's unfortunate. I hate to see it. And I get some customers where maybe you may have a mom or a loved one already understanding what's going to happen, but then you have the person that's in the chair, the person that was all healthy before this happened. They're kind of in a stage of denial. So all we can really do is just be that extra support and just be that knowledge and education to let them know that's out there, because so much is happening to where they're trying to figure out, okay, this happened to me. How am I going to go back into daily life? So usually they're going and seeing like an OT or a PT to kind of get that grasp back on that normalcy and just being able to do the day to days. Then they start figuring out, okay, now how am I going to get around in the house? And then, okay, now, yeah, I can get around with this scooter or this power chair. But then usually there's more physical rehab or OT stuff that needs to happen before they kind of get their final, I guess, their final diagnosis of like, this is what it's going to be like for the for coming years. So what usually happens is it usually takes about a few months to a couple of years to finally get there. And when they finally get through their journey or get to a more comfortable spot on their journey, then I feel like then that's when they're like, okay, I've been sitting around home, or now I'm settled and understand what life is going to be. And then that's where we kind of then fall in, or people call us to say, hey, we saw a van, or now things are becoming more clear. Now we're understanding how things are. And then they come to us after the fact. So it's like that's the one thing that we're trying to change is, getting a lot of the caretakers, care workers, social workers, all the people that are setting up to kind of say, hey, don't forget about this. But sometimes we are getting forgotten, but it's letting everyone be educated that, hey, this equipment is here. So when that timing is right, that person feels comfortable and they're ready to that next step on their journey, they're going, hey, let's look into this equipment and let's see what we can do to get more of that independence. And it's just making sure that we're doing that before we're having that conversation of, hey, I want to spend the last amount of time that I have left, and more like, hey, we know this is available. Let's do this before we get to that point.
Yeah, that's great. Along with that, it made me think, so okay, so yeah, somebody has an event, something happens, and then like you said, they do rehab, they kind of do different things, and then they kind of get to the new kind of like baseline, what their life's kind of going to look like, right? From a
Mm-hmm.
day-to-day kind of functionality standpoint. And do you recommend like waiting until a person kind of gets to that new baseline before they come in and do the needs analysis? Or when do you recommend them coming in to do the needs analysis part when they're on that journey?
I would say going through, and I would say probably like best example would be like if you're like building a house. Like if you're going through and building a house, you're not just gonna go into the house at the very end when it's finished and then start picking out your carpet, your lighting, the utility, or not utilities, but the appliances that are going on. As you're kind of getting to the point where you've already put the blueprints in, you're starting to do the build. That's kind of where you want to be when things are kind of when you're starting to see that you're getting over that physical therapy, you're starting to find your wheelchair, you're starting to order those things. That's when you want to come and see us, because there's so many different moving factors and parts, kind of like when you're building a house, that I would recommend that people would want to see and learn before they get committed on certain mobility equipment and certain devices. And the reason, like I say, is because we may have it to where someone is getting ready, and like a prime example, like the other day, I had it to where uh, an individual had a parent, and with the parent, they're getting to the point where they're about to put him into the assistant living home, and so they were going to do that, but then they had a vehicle out there, and they didn't know whether to keep that vehicle or sell it or go out and buy a brand new vehicle right away. And so it was one of those things that I was like, well, what is the goal? And they're like, well, the goal is to get mom and dad from the assistant living to doctor's appointments. And so then I was like, okay, are they going to be in a chair full time, or are they going to move into something else? And they're like, well, right now they're in a manual chair, but later on they're going to be moving into a power chair, but the power chair won't be here for another 4 to 5 months. So then I'm like, okay, well, that right there is letting me know that you're probably going to have to go towards a wheelchair accessible vehicle. and hey, this is what a wheelchair accessible vehicle looks like, and this is what it's going to cost later down the road, but this is what's going to be kind of where you need to go towards. So that right there is helping them be knowledgeable that, you know what, we need to look towards a wheelchair accessible vehicle and not try to outfit a current vehicle or go get a new one. So in the meantime, what they're doing is they're looking at, hey, how can we sell mom and dad's current vehicle in order to purchase this new one, and then preparing them for that wheelchair accessible vehicle when the time has come and when they get that power chair in. So there's really a lot of moving parts, and I always tell people that at any time, please reach out to us because we don't want to see you buy something that you may not need down the road because a lot of this equipment is not cheap, and the last thing we want is to backtrack on certain things when we could have addressed it before then.
That's great. In terms of the needs assessment, when someone comes in to do that or even start having those kind of conversations, as you said, if they're like going from a regular chair to they're going to be moving into a power chair or, kind of more elevated types of care, um, who do you recommend should be like present for those conversations with you guys? Just kind of overall, like who needs to be there when you guys are going through the needs assessment stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. I would definitely say the number one, it has to be no matter what. You have to bring the person, or the person has to be involved at some point when doing the needed analysis, whether it be the back half, in the middle, or at least some point before we start showing vehicles and going through everything. The person that is in the chair or the person that may have some of the limited abilities, they have to be a part of it because I couldn't tell you how many times where there are some people that are not part of it. And then when you just show up out of nowhere, showing them that this is how things are going to be, you get a lot of denial. You get people that freak out. You get people that get angry over it and they feel betrayed. I mean, it's really important that you bring that person to the needs analysis or have us come to you guys for a need analysis at some point. And then in addition to that, you want to have the close loved ones, the people that help them day to day, the person that's like the person that's really their warrior that they trust in, they believe in, that can be that bridge of communication. And then anyone that's going to be involved in the caretaking and using of the equipment, they should be present as well. Just to understand, hey, what are your capabilities? Because I can get something that's great for maybe a son or a daughter, but if mom is going to be with the dad multiple times and mom isn't, we haven't seen mom and we don't know what her capabilities are either, then sometimes it's a failed analysis because we could have everything good for them, but the main key that gets dad everywhere is mom. And so we didn't get something that worked out for her. So now we're putting her in jeopardy as well. So really, to sum everything up, the person that has the restrictions and needs the accessible equipment, caretakers, and then loved ones that are going to be part of the whole experience and part of that journey.
That's a really great observation. And good point that you brought up about people that are normally caring for them and people that are normally around versus people that are going to sometimes be around. But to your point, like it needs to be able to work for everybody. And kind of everybody needs to be on the same page because also, like, what if, the son who lives here currently is the primary caregiver, but then, in 6 months, a year, whatever, his job gets transferred and now the sister has to be the primary caregiver and she has to step in. So yeah, kind of having everybody be on the same page is a good idea. With that being said, too, I thought about when you were talking, like again, like how sometimes, and this can go vice versa, but sometimes the family then is like really excited about their from the caregiver standpoint, like their loved one being able to have independence so that they like don't have to deal with it anymore and they don't have to run them around. Yay, they get their time back, they can have their life back. And vice versa, I assume, like to your point earlier, like that can happen on the other spectrum, because then sometimes, yeah, then the client, um, or like the patient or whatever can be excited that they can get their own independence back, so they can do whatever, whenever, and stuff like that. But do you normally see though, like does the emotions normally like match on both sides, or do you normally see typically more like the family's really excited and the person initially is absolutely like, okay, I'll do this, but you can tell like
Mhm.
kind of undertone, they're like slightly terrified. And then over time they warm up to it, they get used to it, and then they end up liking it, or is it normally like vice versa? Does that make sense? Kind of like what's the emotional status of the family, caregiver people, and also these patients when they start versus like how it ends up going. And like, and what do you recommend to support that also? Because obviously, all y'all, you're fantastic, Mr. Joey, but you are not a counselor. So, like,
Mhm.
what do you recommend to support from that standpoint too? Like, families as they're going through all this decision making stuff.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's all over. Like it's there's I got stories for everything and reactions for everything. But the one thing I will say though is that, and in our world, and it's unfortunate, but there's times that people no longer need our services or may need a bit of equipment or a wheelchair accessible vehicle, and they'll bring it back to us to where we do have to buy it back, or we'll offer them an offer to buy it back. And I will say, after doing this for over 5 years, and I was having a conversation with one of my colleagues that's actually about to be retiring here soon, that's done it for over 20 years. And we both came to agreement that we have probably never seen in all the years combined that we've done this. And I imagine a lot of people could say this too, that I don't think I've ever had anyone come back and say, you know what? I wish we never bought this wheelchair accessible vehicle. This was the worst decision we ever did, was to buy this and own this equipment. I've never had it. I've had people to where they bought vans and maybe only needed it for a month, 2 months, 3 months, even a short amount of time, to where they've only got to use it a few times in the time that they had it. And they all came back that, you know what, this was the best thing. They had some memory, some story that they're able to take a loved one to go and see something or do one more favorite activity that they wanted, or just was able to just get out. I mean, we laugh about it, but I mean, just being able to get out and go to the casino and just have some of that time with I mean, people go and do that, and just to have a little bit of that independence back and just that time, you just can't put a price or just put you can put stories behind it, but it's just everyone has their own story and just what it's done to them. So I just never had anyone have a reaction. But at the beginning, when it comes to at the beginning, when it comes to going through and getting these vehicles or the equipment, it happens all the time. I've had it to where the people in the chairs and the people that are limited to abilities, they're super excited, but the person that's caretaking them, they don't have faith, or they're thinking that it could be more responsibility put on them, or they feel like they're this being more of a burden now because now there's a vehicle and they got to kind of step up and now be the caretaker. I've seen that happen. I've seen people go through, and siblings, that's a big thing. You have one sibling that is a cheerleader for mom and dad to get a van, but then the other sibling is like, why are we going through and spending this type of money when they're barely going to use it? Or are we really using our money at the best that we can? And it's unfortunate because really you can't put a price on them. But if it is what they want to do and what how they want to you know live life, then I don't think that we should be able to restrict it, and we should be able to encourage what they want and their goals and make them happy on what they're wanting to do with these wheelchair vehicles. But your point on being a counselor, I mean, there's times where you can kind of step in and let everyone know that, hey, you're doing this not for yourself but for the loved one. But it's still a slippery slope, and all you can do is just listen, ask questions. And then doing this long enough, I've been able to have the right questions to kind of let people kind of take that step back and really evaluate what they're saying or what they're thinking or the choices they're making, to kind of understand, like, wait a minute, maybe I do need to slow down and see what this can do for our loved ones. Or, hey, maybe I may be wrong and I need to look at this from a goal standpoint of what mom and dad really want, or the individual that wants to spend their money or do what they want to do with their independence and their free time and what they have left. And so, there's tons of scenarios out there, but really, I think what I can do or what I like to do is just one, just education, going over what we all have talked about today and just really letting them all know all the ins and outs. So it's not like we're pushing a really, really expensive solution, and to let them know that there are budget friendly solutions that are out there, but also just listening, asking tons of questions, and, trying to help sometimes steer and pivot questions. But at the end of the day, if someone doesn't want to do something, and if someone, you just can't force people to do this, and you can never force them. Some people get close, but it just never works out. So just when the timing is right, asking the right questions and just meeting people's goals.
But with it being like spring and summer, coming up, and people are getting out and about more, etc., and families even starting to do vacations, do you guys personally like rent any of these vehicles out for people to be able to use for any of those things, or are there other companies that do that? And then, so that's question one, I guess. But my other thought is from like a 2.0 of that is, do you recommend families and also the person that's going to be using the vehicle to like rent the kind of vehicle with the type of accessories or whatever options you put on it first to try it out before they actually like buy it? Or do you have some kind of system? I mean, not, I don't know, or do they like take it for a test ride, or like how do the families, like how do they figure out, yeah, if it's a good fit or not? So two totally different questions, but yeah, kind
Yeah,
of kind of
absolutely.
wrapped. Yeah.
Yeah, no, no, no. So yes, we do have wheelchair accessible vehicles to rent. Wheelchair accessible vehicles is the only kind of equipment that we can rent because we sell them. But with the wheelchair accessible vehicles, it provides a solution that's more generic for others. And when I say that is because we don't really have lifts or hand controls or seating options in any vehicles or anything really here, except to really like try out or maybe view. Because the thing is when it comes to all that other equipment is very specific to the person and their vehicle. So I can't really rent out vehicles that may have seating options because someone may not work out in that vehicle and that seating option and what's going to happen. So to be able to have that one off and hope that that person comes in to rent that specific type of equipment usually doesn't going to happen, and it's not going to be cost effective for everyone that's a part of it and for all the equipment out there. I just can't have all these different vehicles loaded with this equipment. But when it comes to wheelchair accessible vehicles, yes, we do have the wheelchair accessible vehicles to rent. Um, you can, we're open Monday through Friday or Monday through Saturday, so you can rent all throughout the week. We have 24-hour rentals, and then we do have some people that if they need them for a longer amount of times, then you can do extended rental rates. And then you can always contact us and we can go over the more days that you rent. I think there's more price breaks. That's a question for our rental coordinator. But yes, we do have vehicles available for rent. I always suggest definitely test one out, see what you think, see what you get a feel for. If you like it, great. We can talk about purchasing. I have some people that are just avid renters to where they've been renting for the longest time and they're just not ready to do a car payment and they're not ready to buy one yet, but they just go through and rent. Kind of similar to when people for houses. Some people buy their own houses. Some people are okay with renting. But I would definitely say come out and try one, get a feel for it, rent it, just be able to get that independence and get your loved ones out and about and just see how it is. And then if the timing is right, where you're like, you know what, maybe we do want to own our own, then we'll go through a need analysis. We'll find one that's in your budget, find one that meets all of the demands and goals that you may have. And then what we do is with these vehicles, yes, you do test drives. I go even the extra step of taking the vehicle to your home to make sure that it fits in your driveway, it fits in your garage. You're able to get the ramp out and you're able to get out of the vehicle into your home and vice versa. Because I understand that these things are not, I hate to use the word, but they're not cheap. They can be expensive, and we want to make sure that we're trying every odds and ends and having you test drive it and do everything that you can think of with the vehicle to know that that's going to be the right vehicle for you. Because this vehicle has been modified and they do drive different. They do hit curbs and they do hit speed bumps a lot different than your traditional vehicle. So we want to, and they come in driveways at a different angle than vehicles than most people are used to. So I want to make sure that we do everything that we can to make sure that all your bases are covered and everything and all the needs are met. But we do part of that need analysis. We take vehicles out, we get them test drive, we get people in and out of the vehicle with their power chairs. We take them on rides with them in their power chairs to make sure that the rides are smooth rides. I mean, we really do a lot to make sure that the vehicle is the right vehicle for that individual.
That sounds like amazing customer service and above and beyond. I love it. No, but that's a great idea though about making sure it fits in the garage, and even the driveway and things like that. I would, yeah, I didn't originally think about that. Thinking of parking stuff with these kind of vehicles, do people normally just have like handicap sticker and then they just park, or the handicap, thing, and they just park in handicap spots, or do they park in, I guess, I don't know. I would imagine handicap spots or regular spots. And then also, I know a lot of people that have, different kinds of equipment they use, whether it's just a walker, a wheelchair, or something. These people sometimes, if they're used to doing stuff by themselves with their regular vehicle before, a lot of them will valet because they, don't even have the capacity to park out there in the handicap
Mm-hmm.
spot and then, walk all the way in or whatever. So can you valet like these kind of vehicles, or how in the world does that work?
Yeah, I could see where you could valet one. Yeah, I think you could definitely valet. Typically, when people have wheelchair accessible vehicles, they are using the handicap placard and putting it in and parking in an accessible parking space and then using the lines. That was one of the things when I first got in this industry, and I know shame on me, but I had no idea that those double lines were meant to take the space of a wheelchair accessible vehicle for the ramp to go in that space. So shame on me for not knowing that. For all the times that I was a brat and parked there when I shouldn't have. But yeah, a lot of times people are parking in those accessible parking spots. And so that I do have customers that they go to doctor's appointments and they're always taken. So sometimes people will go and park way back in the back of the parking lot and hope that, fingers crossed, that no one parks next to them. And it's very unfortunate, but that's why we do put stickers and put caution on the vehicles to let people know that it is a wheelchair accessible vehicle. Please give them the space that they need to be able to get out of the side of the vehicle. And so we hope that no one does park next to them if that's the extreme case. But then you also run into that's where need analysis come in. And I do have it to where that it could be families or even some caretakers that'll tell me that they actually prefer the rear entry vehicle composed to the side entry because of what I said. They go to doctor's appointments a lot and they run into a busy time at the doctor's appointments where they can never find accessible parking. So what they do is they like the rear entry because they can park in any spot that they please and not let it be accessible, and it'll allow them to open up the back of their van, open up the ramp, and get their loved one out to get them into doctor's appointments. So once again, that's kind of, it goes back into, that's another just minor little thing that we ask people, what are you going to be using the van for? To kind of determine, are you going to be more frustrated or less frustrated with the parking situation? And would you rather prefer a side entry or a rear entry? And that could determine based off of their parking designs of what they're doing and how they're attending the facilities that they're going to.
That's a really good call out. I would never have even thought about that. The side entry versus the rear entry. Well, and also too, like to your point, yeah, depending on where they live, if they live like in an assisted living place or they live in a, somewhere that has a parking garage or something like that, and they literally don't have access to get out, on the sides. That'd be a great idea to have the rear entry. Love it. Last question that
Yep.
someone is asking for you for this segment for you. And then next segment, we are going to go play with all the vehicles and see all the different options, which I'm so excited for you guys to be able to, yeah, for us to all physically kind of get our hands on. So that's going to be cool. Is oh nope, never mind. Sorry, two more last questions.
Okay.
This one's gonna be fast. How long do these vehicles normally last, like mileage wise? Are they like a normal vehicle, or what does that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a lot of these are going to be in minivans, and sometimes you get full size vans. And with these vehicles, it's hard to explain. And I mean, how do I break it? So minivans and these vans, as long as you do the maintenance on vans and what they have right now, these vehicles can last upwards to over at least close to 200,000, and depending on how well you maintain your vehicle, they could even go into 200,000, like above 200,000 miles. I mean, by the end of the life, though, I mean, you're running the wheels off of it. And I mean, you really got some usage if you really put that miles. But with the vans nowadays, they can last and they can put a lot of wear and tear. But from what we see with our different clients and how much they're using them, and how much they're really getting out. And as you guys know, if there are some restrictions, sometimes it is a little harder to get out and go from, run all those errands and just be out all day, just because of the toll on your body and just the time that it takes to get ready and just other things that may be involved with your day to day. That we sometimes will see them come back after maybe 5 to 10 years with less than 100,000 miles or with good mileage on them. That, yeah, they use them really good, but they use them the best capability for themselves. So with these vehicles, sometimes, yeah, they could last for a long time, but when it comes to miles wise, they're not your traditional tack on miles is like how you would on a day to day car. So we do see some that come in from day to day that where I can find a 2015 or a 19 that may only have 40 or 50,000 miles. And so it was great for one customer that may be upgrading, but that's still, we still have a whole nother life and a whole nother 5 to possibly 10 years, as many how many miles you put on it for it to last even longer. I mean, every now and then we see some vans that come in that are at least 15 to 20 years old because that individual did a really good job of maintaining and garaged it and kept real good care of it. And yeah, they're able to use it for a while. And sometimes we go through and we're able to resell it. And that other individual is using it for another 5 to 10 years. So, I mean, them going through and putting that additional steel and really building these machines the way they are, they can have a pretty good livelihood on them and a very lifetime. I know that was a long way of me explaining it, but it's not the easiest way to expand the life of a van because they can actually last pretty long.
That's incredible. Yeah, I love that. Well, and that's a really good point too, that you can find older, like older models that have low mileage again because of, the usage with this, population is different, sometimes. So that's cool. That's awesome. Last question that we're going to take for this segment because there's all kinds of questions coming at you because this is a hot topic apparently. Anyways, any updates to these kind of vehicles that you guys have seen in the last couple years? Good or bad, I guess. I don't know, that have been positive or negatively received, like from an update standpoint, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, the more and more we get into technology, the better and better that these vehicles are getting. They're getting less finicky. As I told you, you guys may have picked up earlier in the day, I'd mentioned that, hey, we're in the business of putting things where they don't belong. I don't think anyone ever thought that at one point in our life that we're going to take a caravan or take these vans that they make at a Chrysler or Dodge or, at the Toyota plants and able to take a fresh car and really cut into it, chop it up, resolder, re-weld, and brand, and basically build a whole new vehicle that has a ramp and all these capabilities all put in one and all combined into one. So the one thing I will say is when it comes to the conversions, they're getting more and more advanced. They're getting less and less finicky. There's less problems with them when it comes to maintenance and just getting them repaired. Um, there's so much more out there. People are getting more aware of what's out there for just the support. I mean, I left the industry about 3 years ago and I'm now back. But when I left, there was only one finance company that was financing these. Now, a lot of the people that were at other companies or had gone and moved on to different ones. There used to be one. Now there's like five different financial companies that will actually go through and finance these vehicles. There's just more and more out there as far as support and just knowing that it's out there. And then in addition to just new models, I mean, we had the Toyota Sienna hybrid that came in 2020, and then now they're actually bringing back another SUV option. So for individuals that may not want to be in a van, they're having options to modify SUVs and trucks. So there are another. We've been able to do trucks, but there's now a more reliable truck conversion out there that is long term, holds up, not having to do a lot of repairs in the future, and just everything's just being more reliable, and everything is just the technology is being amazing. Eventually, could we see some cars that are going to be driving themselves? Maybe, but I wouldn't be surprised in 5 to 10 years, someone being able to open up a wheelchair accessible vehicle, pulling right in, locking in, and then them telling the car, take me here, and then it taking them there and dropping them off and then picking them back up. That'd be really cool to see that in the future. But I mean, with how cars are going in technology, I could definitely see it.
That's amazing. I love that. That is so cool about the SUVs and the trucks too. I had no idea about that because, yeah, I mean, I could see some people, especially guys, maybe having the whole stipulation about not wanting to have the van thing if they could have other options. But yeah, that's really pretty cool. So fabulous. Okay. I appreciate your time. Thank you. Thank you. And most importantly, all that was important, but most importantly, how can people get a hold of you if they have questions or want to set up, the needs analysis, etc. What's the best way to get a hold of you? And do you guys have a website or something that people can go to?
Yeah. So I am
Or if
going
you want to
to.
screen share that, that'd be cool
I went
too.
ahead and in the chat, I put my email. It's
Okay.
jpindell at southernbusandmobility.com. So if anyone wants to
Okay.
email me, they're more than happy to email me. And then I went ahead and I put our website as well in the chat. But our website is southernbusandmobility.com. We have location in St. Louis and a location in Breeze, Illinois. And yeah, we're here to help out. You can see our inventory. You can see some of the stuff we do. And then, yeah, and if someone's not in my area or in the St. Louis area and they want to reach out to me to see who may be a good, reliable source in their backyard, give me a call. Because at the end of the day, we're here to help people, let them know that this equipment's out here. And if it's not me that's helping you, all I can hope is that someone else can help you and really help you get that independence back that you need.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And I look forward, yes, to the next segment we'll have in person where we can actually look at some of the vehicles. So stay tuned, everyone. More to come. So thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.